Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. And if you are tuning in first time, you're most welcome and thank you for listening. And also don't forget to subscribe before you go. So in today's video, I'm going to show you what all the different actions and expressions are available in Power Automate for the DateTime operations. So stay tuned. So today I'm going to show you these various operations that you can do in Power Automate. The first one is converting a time zone. So if you are getting a date to in a given time zone and you want to convert it to a different time zone, how easily or how you can do that in Power Automate. The second, changing the date format. So if you want to change the format of the date that you're getting, again, what are the different options are available for you to do that and how you can do that. The third one, if you want to manipulate the date, for an example, if you want to add some days, month, year, hours to a given date and time, or you want to subtract some time from the given date and time. So I'm going to show you how you can do that. The fourth one, if you want to compare two dates and see if one date is greater than or less than equal to other date, or if you wanted to find the difference between two dates, like how many hours or how many days or how many minutes difference there are in two dates. The next one, we're going to learn how you can find the days of a week, month, or year. This is going to be very useful for the next option that we're going to learn is finding the weekend. And the last one, how you can get date from the Excel and what are the different format that you get in Power Automate. Okay, so let's start. I'm going to start creating a simple instant cloud flow. So start with, let's see what are the options we have. So right now you have two options that you can pick from if you are working on date and time. The first one, or maybe the easier one, is adding a new step and searching for date and time. So Flow has a date time action available for us to pick from and use it, because these are already built in actions, so you don't really need to write any expression to use them. Another option that we have is if you go to the compose and if you click on the expressions, if you look for the date time, and as you can see here, there are many functions are available, but these are all required at least basic knowledge of expressions, right? So you need to know how to write the expression to use these functions. Some of these functions are already covered under the date and time action. So we are going to start with our very first operations that most of the time we generally do, converting the time zone. Okay, so click on new step, go to date time, and we are going to pick convert time zone action. This is the action. As you can see, it's very straightforward actions. You don't really need to know a lot of things to use it. Base time, it's your time that you wanted to convert the time zone for. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just use UTC now function. What this function does, it's going to give me the current UTC time. Okay, fair enough, that's fine. The source time zone. So you need to know what time zone you're trying to convert, or the time that you are getting is under which time zone. Because we are using UTC here, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick the UTC time zone here. Then it's asking me the destination time zone. So the destination time zone is the time zone that I like to convert. So I'm going to say it's central. And then it also gave me an option. This is optional, as you can see. I can leave it blank, or I can pick a format that I want this date to be after conversion, right? So let's say I'm picking full date time pattern long. Okay, and I save it and run it. Okay, so my flow completed, and as you can see here, this was my base time. So now if you notice, this is the base time for UTC. UTC is already 22nd of March, but if you notice in CST, it is still 21st. So that's why the converting the time zone is very important, because if you use the default time that you are getting, maybe it's in UTC and you may not be calculating your dates correctly because the date has changed. It is now 22nd in UTC. So always be very careful when you are using UTC time because it can change based on your location. Okay, but just to show you, so we provided this time and it converted to the time zone that we have and also the format that we have given. So yeah, this is pretty simple. So the next action that we're going to learn is formatting the date and time, right? Now there's two options for that. One is actually writing an expression. So if I go to the compose and if I go to the expression and if I search for format, and you can see here saying format date time. So this is a function that is available. Now most of the cases we don't really know the right format. So we're not going to use this approach. Instead, what we are going to do, we are going to use the built-in convert time zone function. Now hold on, we're going to use this to actually format the date. So it's going to ask you the time. So I'm going to use this time, the time that we just converted in our previous step, right? So let's say this is my time. And now we know because this time is in CST because this is what we converted. So the source time, we're going to set it to Central Time. And here's the key. The destination time, I'm also setting for Central Time Zone. So now if you have a date that you wanted to format, and if you know the time zone, you can use this action, provide the source and the destination time zone is the same time zone that the date belongs to. And then what you can do, then you can pick the format string. And there are so many different format already built in available that you can just select from the list. So let's say for an example, I like this days to be converted in month, year month pattern. I'll select that and I will test my flow. And you can see here. So it's pretty simple. Now let's say you don't see the time format that you wanted to convert in this list. So you have option to enter a custom value. Click on this enter custom value and now you can type in, of course you need to know the format that you wanted to convert. So for example, I say mm. So what I'm saying, just give me the month for this date. That's the format I want. And this is my custom format. Now if I run the flow right now, as you can see, it's giving me the March. That's the month, right? So this is how easy you can do it. You don't need to remember or know each and every date time format. Rather, you can just use the convert time zone function and reuse it as a date formatter. Now, the next action. Let's say we wanted to add or subtract some days or hours or minutes or months from a date, right? So similarly, as we are using built-in action, there is a built-in action available that's called add to time and subtract from time, right? Add to time, as you can see, it is to add days, month, minutes to the given date. Subtract is just removing that number of days. I pick on add time. As in previous action, you need to provide the base time. Then the intervals. So this is the number that you wanted to add to a given time. It's still a number. You can decide the unit. So if I say 2, you can decide whether this is a 2 month, 2 week, 2 days, 2 hour, 2 minute, 2 seconds, or I can also enter custom value, maybe say year. So how much time you wanted to add to the given date based on the unit that you are selecting. So let's say I wanted to add 2 days to this date. I'll run it and you can see it added to date here. So it was 21st, now it's 23. Very simple, very easy to use. Now at the same time, you can reuse this add to time to subtract, or you can use the subtract to time action. If you want to reuse, the only thing you need to do, you need to just pass the negative number here. So if I pass the negative number and run it, it will subtract these 2 days from the date. So as you can see here, it's now 19, right? So it's pretty simple. Now the next one. Now let's say you wanted to compare 2 dates, right? And like to see whether one is greater than or smaller or equal to other one, right? So for that, there's no direct action available. Unfortunately, maybe in future, but right now there is no action available right now. So you have to use the expressions, but expressions not going to be that difficult to use. So first thing that we need to understand for the date, as you know, the date, when we get date from any other data source, or like in our case, we are getting from these different actions, they are not really the final number, right? So if you compare date to date, you may not get the right results. So for doing the correct comparison, what you need to use, there is a function called ticks, right? And what it does is give you the ticks of that current date. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to use the greater than, greater or equal. So we are comparing two dates. And then, as I said, I'm going to use the ticks. So I need to find the ticks for my date. So this is my simple expression here. I'm going to click on dynamic content, and I'm going to pick the calculated time that we just did. And then I'm going to put a comma. So as you can see on this help window here, is saying now you need to provide, or you need to give me the date or the number that you want to compare with. So for that, I'm going to again use the ticks, because we need ticks to compare with. And this time I'm going to use our converted time, the first action, the original date that we had. Let's run this. Okay, so the flow runs, and if you go to the compare, it's saying false. Now let's see why it's saying false. So this is my date that I'm passing as the first date, and it's saying 19th of March. This is the another date that I'm comparing with, it's saying 21st of March. Of course, 19th March is not greater than or equal to 21st of March. So the result is correct, it's false. Now let's say we're gonna make it 4. So now we are adding 4 days to the original date that we have, and we test it. Now it's true. So this is how easily you can compare two different dates. Now let's say you wanted to know the difference between two dates. Calculating the difference is not really a big problem, because the only thing that you need to do, you need to add a compose action and go to the expression and use the sub function. This is just a subtract function. And what you need to do, you need to provide ticks for your first date and for the second date. And this function will give you the difference between these two ticks. But the result is still in ticks, right? So let me show you quickly. So let's say our first date is ticks. This is the date, right? And my second date is ticks of this one, right? So now in this expression, let me copy and show you in detail. Okay, so we are subtracting first date ticks to the second date ticks, right? Very simple. It's like this date minus this date. Let's see what the result we get. So let me rerun the flow, and this is the number that resulted the difference. Now this number practically no use for anyone, right? Because this is the ticks. Now I don't know whether this is how many hours, how many days, month, minutes, no idea. So how you can get the actual days, hours, minutes, or month from these ticks? So for that, you need to understand a little bit about the ticks. You don't need to, and I will give this information in my description so you can copy. So this is the ticks per day. So every day there are these many ticks. Every hours there are these many ticks. Every minute, every seconds, and every milliseconds. So what you can do now, let's say you find the difference in 2 days in the ticks, right? And you wanted to know how many days actually those ticks, that the final ticks is representing. What you need to do, you need to just divide that final number with this number. If you need to find out the hours, then you need to divide that number with this number. Okay, so let's say we're gonna find out how many days. So I'm gonna copy this number, go to our flow. For division, we have a function called div, very simple, and just go all the way at the end and we're going to paste that number here. We don't need comma because this is the number, and bracket close. Again, I'm going to copy and show you this expression. So div, what we are dividing this number that we are getting from the previous action. This is the difference between two dates by this number to get the days, right? Now, if I want the hours, then only thing I need to do, I need to use the same expression. And instead of using this number, what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick the hours number, right? That is 36 here. Okay, so let's go back to our flow. Okay, so we're going to run the flow now. So now flow completed, and now if you see, it's coming as 4. And just to confirm the number is correct, that's what we added here, right? Because what we are doing, we are getting this date, adding a number, and then trying to find the difference. Now let's say we wanted to check the number of hours between these. So the only thing that we need to change, as you know, we need to change the number of that we are dividing with. So instead of this, we're going to pick this 36 number. Click update, rerun the flow, and you see it's 96. Now the next action. So sometime what happened in our flow, we wanted to know whether the current day or date is a weekend or not. So for that, again, there is no built-in action available. But if you go to the compose and check the expression, there is something called day of week. What it does, let me first show you if I use this for our current date. So without making any changes, I'm just saying the day of week. We start the test and I got 0, right? So when you use day of week function and pass a given date, what it does, it gives you the number that representing that given day. So 0 represents Sunday, 1 is Monday, Tuesday is 2, Wednesday is 3, then 4 is Thursday, 5 is Friday, and 6 is Saturday. So this way you can do the calculations based on whether the given date is falling over the weekend. So now let's say for an example, you are creating a flow in which you are adding certain number to a given day. So for example, you are adding 5 days to a given date to setting up the next due date for that work, right? But at the same time, you wanted to make sure that once you add that 5 days for that given date, that should not fall on Sunday. And if it is falling on Sunday, maybe you wanted to add another day, right? So how you can do it using this days of week function. So as you remember, we have used this add to time and we are adding 4 days to the given date. Now let's say we wanted to check if result of this should not fall on Sunday. The check is very simple. The only thing that you need to do, you need to just add a compose action. And what you need to do, you need to go to the expression, use a if expression and say days of week, pass your calculated date or the date that you are getting after adding those number of days to your existing date. And before that, we're going to use equals. So we're going to say if days of the week for this calculated date equals to 0. And we know if it is equals to 0, that means it's a Sunday. And if it is a Sunday, maybe you wanted to add additional day. So this time what we can do, we can use add days. We can just pass our calculated date here, say 1. And if it is not equal to 0, then maybe do nothing. Now let me show you this expression in a little bit more detail. So the expression is, we are checking if equals, so we are comparing days of week for our calculated date with 0. And if that condition is true, so if this equal condition is true, what we are doing, we are just adding 1 day to that calculated date, else doing nothing. Okay, so the expression is pretty straightforward, easy to understand. So let me save this one and test. So I run that flow. Now, as you can see here, if I go to the compose, it's nothing. The reason, because if you go to the add to time, the final calculated date is not Sunday. Now let's do this. Let's go to add to time and we're going to add 7, and now we're going to test this one. So now if I go to the compose, and as you can see here, now we are getting result, but the date is 29. If you look at the add to time, it's 28. And if you look at the date, 28 is Sunday. So it find out that 28 is Sunday, added 1 day and increment the date by 1. So this is how easy you can check the weekends and perform your applicable action, what you want to do if the date falling on the weekends. Okay, now the last one, and I'm going to quickly show you what has changed for Excel. So if you look for the Excel connector here, so this is my Excel connection. The action that I'm going to show you is list row presents in a table. But if you click on show advanced options, there is one thing that added here saying date time format. And what you can pick now, you can pick a serial number, that is the classic date that we used to get, or you can now select ISO 8601. This is the actual date format that we want. So let me show you what this is. So I'm connecting to my SharePoint here. Okay, so I connected to my SharePoint, I connected to the Excel, and I pick the date time format is 8601. Just going to add another step to display the date that we are getting. Okay, and let's test this flow. And now if I go back to my flow, hopefully that should be completed. Yes, it does. And if I look for the date, and you can see I'm getting the rightly formatted date here because I selected that option. Now let me quickly show you, if I not select this format and if I select the serial number, that how it was before this change came, and I run it, and if I see now how the date looks like, and as you can see here, now it is coming as a number. So if you remember, there is a lot of work that we used to do to convert this number to the rightly formatted date. So yes, if you use that one small drop down and select ISO format, then you are actually going to save maybe 3 or 4 actions in your flow. And as you know, the more actions in your flow, the performance is going to be a little bit not issue. So yeah, so try to pick the right option there when you connect into the Excel. And this actually conclude our all these different operations, actions, expressions are available in Power Automate for DateTime. And thanks for listening and watching. Thank you. Have a nice day.